Yeah, the Greeks did think of music as science and math more than an art form, very much. And there were like kind of three kinds of music: musica mundana, music of the spheres, like the universe, music of the world. And that term music didn't actually talk, it wasn't about sound, it was more about like the cosmic order of planets rotating and things like that. And then there was musica humana, which was how the soul and our physical body were kind of intertwined with each other and the relationships between the soul and the body. And then there was the third kind of music, which was actually sound, musica instrumentalis, which was any kind of music that people played or sang. That was considered this third kind of music. But it was related to the universe and body, the human body and the soul. And so it was thought that actually music was a oral, like something you can hear, expression of the same order that governs the universe. So it is a pretty huge theoretical concept, but this is how the Greeks approached music. And it actually affects a lot of why we have certain things called scales and keys and things like that. So I have this violin here, okay, and I'd actually like one of you to, I'm going to demonstrate something, okay? So this thing is very nice to kind of demonstrate this because you can, by changing the length of the string, you can change the pitch, like very smoothly, right? There's no discrete pitches. It keeps changing, okay? So for a given length of string, we get a certain kind of note, okay? But what happens if we, and this is where the math comes in, what happens if we make the string half of its length? Okay, so I'd like one of you, maybe Marcus, do you think you could put your finger on this third string? So try to measure where it is, or like how long it is, and then put your finger on the third string. So this is what it sounds like full length. Okay, so try to figure out where it is half length, and then put your finger down there. Okay, I'm going to play it. Okay, so put your finger down firmly. Yeah, you can hold, let go of other stuff. Yeah. Halfway, yeah. So just, measure halfway. Okay, does that look halfway? Yeah, about there. So hold it there. And push it nice and hard down. Yep, good, there we go. Ooh. Sorry, harder. You gotta make sure, there we go, nice. Now let go. Wow, so that's a very interesting relationship. You were very close. Those two notes sound very similar, okay? And by creating a string that's half its length, we create a note that's actually twice as high. Okay? And this relationship we now call an octave for reasons which I'll explain later. Okay? So if you half the length of the string, it goes twice as high. Okay? What happens if you make it 2/3 long, or basically cut out 1/3 of the string? Okay? It will make this kind of sound. Whoop. Okay, so this point here that my finger is on is actually or like this length here, which the bow is vibrating, is 2/3 of the length. Okay, and then what happens if we do a 3/4 of the length, a string that's only 3/4 long? So you get that kind of change in the tone. Okay, so these three things we created. This is the octave, half length, 2/3 length. I'm sorry. That's 2/3 length, and then this. That's 3/4 length. Okay, Those are called the octave, fifth, and fourth. Those intervals, yeah, okay? And you see they're very mathematical. You don't even need to be able to hear it. You can just measure how long a string is, and then you would know what the next pitch was based on those dimensions, yeah, okay? And so this is actually the beginning of how the Greeks built the scale, okay? And the fourth and the fifth are 2 points of how we traverse the distance of an octave, okay? So between, two notes that are an octave apart, okay? How many notes are in between those pillar notes? Can someone count and tell me?
8.
Why don't we include the black ones too?
Oh.
And don't double count the C's, yeah. How many?
10.
There's, okay, how many white notes are there between the,
Oh, okay.
just counting one C? There are 7.
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then how many black notes? 5, yes. So there's how many total?
12.
There's 12 notes. Okay, there are 12 unique notes in the Western musical, the distance between an octave. Yeah, 12 notes will get you to the next octave. Okay, so this is kind of very important, okay, because this is actually a kind of arbitrary number. Okay, actually Indian scales have a different number of notes between an octave. Yeah, and a lot of Asian countries have different tuning systems that have different distances. Okay, and so so because we have over 2,000-3,000 years decided that we have 12 notes. Okay, now how do we use these 12 notes in a kind of pleasing way? Yeah. Okay, and remember, and I'm going to show you that these the fifth here. Remember that 2/3 length string. Okay, that's where the fifth is located. Okay, and then the fourth is one step below that. Okay, so that distance is a fourth. Okay, and so the distance between a fourth and a fifth here is something we call a whole step. Okay, and you notice a whole step has something in the middle of it. This black note, right? Okay, so a whole step is not the smallest interval. Okay, it's not the smallest distance in Western music. Okay, so where would this, if this was the lower note, where would the next whole step be?
Up or down?
Yeah, it could go up or down. It could be this, or it could be this, right? So by counting whole steps, you always have to kind of skip a note and then go to the next one. Okay, so what about this? What is the whole step up from it? Is it a white or a black note? It's a black note, so you skip this and go up here. Okay, so these are all whole steps. What about this? If you go up, what is the next whole step? Is it a white or a black note?
Black.
Right, you skip this and you go there. Okay?
So how did you figure that out? I'm trying to figure out like.
So so we oh, this will be my pointing stick. So we always go by counting upwards. We go to the next note that's closest to it. It could be white or black. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, all the notes go up a half step.
Yeah. So
You're
you're always, when you're looking to go up or down and you're counting, well, now we're going to define what a half step is. Okay. The half step is like the closest distance between two notes, like two closest notes. Okay, two notes that are next to each other. Okay, so when you're doing half steps, you're just counting or kind of looking at where the next note is placed. Okay, all right. So so we talked about what a whole step and a half step is now. Okay.
So like how did they guess when it went up the whole octave? It was just shot out there and then.
Yeah. Sorry.
Like when they say like versus going like out of nowhere, they said, oh, it would be the next one over, and so you just have to know where every note on the piano is?
So I haven't, I actually, I mean, I maybe sometimes actually wish there wasn't letter names yet, but, there are in this program. So, this is just a visualization of what I was showing on the violin, okay? So every time you half the string, you go up another octave, the length of the string, okay?
Yeah, it's just hard to figure out the piano because I'm trying to figure out how they rationalize where one note made it up, go up a whole octave versus another without that for a second, thing that they did,
Well,
unless somebody knows about the piano.
You're trying to ask, like, can you rephrase your question?
Well, the second time when they guessed, or they came out and said that it was another note that brought it up an octave,
Yeah.
and I was wondering if they all knew something about the piano, or they just figured it out.
No, like, the piano wasn't invented in 200, 300 BC, yeah, but, they did have certain kinds of keyboards and even pipe organs, actually, in ancient Greece, that, it's similar to the violin, the pipe lengths were different, yeah.
Oh, they all
Yeah.
knew, and I kept thinking, how do they, they just came without even,
Yeah.
before I explained it, unless they hit some.
Well,
values or
I mean,
something.
people thought a lot about this.
No,
the
I mean, everybody
spacings.
here seemed to know, and I'm going,
Oh,
how did they know if it wasn't explained?
well,
in
this
school?
is kind of training for, basic first few weeks of piano. You kind of live with this stuff, yeah. But, sorry, yes? Yep.
You could, if you go up a half note, it could be either a white key or a black
That's
key,
right.
depending on where you start.
Absolutely, yep.
Oh.
Okay.
Half steps they can be from white to black,
Mhm.
or black to white, or even white to white,
Right, and
yeah.
so when
But
you.
they can never be black to black, actually. A half step
Oh,
can
okay.
never be black to black, because there's no two black notes that are next to each other.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
But
But-
there are white notes that are, the white keys,
Yes.
that
yes.
are, yes, and that's at the,
Yes.
where the octave point
Yeah.
is, the Cs are.
Yes,
wherever the
and
Cs
I
are.
should point out that so you notice that this has a pattern, right?
5
Yeah.
and 12?
It's the same notes over
Yeah,
between
The
each
12 notes
octave.
keep repeating.
Yeah.
But it's like it's 5 for 12, see 5 for 12, 5 for 12, right?
I see what you're meaning, yes,
Yeah.
but yes, it's the same 12 notes every time you repeat
Go
the
up an
cycle.
octave.
Yeah,
Oh.
yep,
Or
exactly. Okay, so, like those Cs are all an octave apart from each other,
Mhm.
like second, third, fourth octave.
So you just have to know where to start.
Yeah, but in some sense, yes. And you can start here, and those all would also be an octave apart, right? As long as it's like a repeating pattern. It's cyclic.
So
Okay.
if I knew how to play the piano, I'd know how to read music.
Kind of, it helps a lot.
Probably.
I mean,
Definitely
no,
not.
I don't think you necessarily
Well, you
have to
could
learn how to
memorize
play the
it,
piano,
yeah.
but
Well, like we all
It-
learn
it
heart and
helps-
soul.
it helps to
You know?
hear things on the piano, definitely.
Well, I just memorized a piece
Yeah,
of
well,
music 'cause I think.
So I'm trying to explain things so you actually would be able to
Learn faster.
learn without memorizing and actually understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to sing something really quickly, okay? That. Okay. Bumble, 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 bumblebee. Okay, ready and bumble, 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 bumblebee. Okay, so that kind of gives you a sense of the distance of a half step. Okay, and then let's just do do re mi re do. Do re mi re do. Okay, those are all whole steps. Okay, because remember there's like a note in between each one. Okay, good. All right, so now we define wholes and half steps. Okay, now the Greeks also decided and figured out that in order for music to sound nice, pleasing with consonant intervals, we couldn't use all 12 notes all the time. We actually have to choose a subset of the 12 notes. Okay? And this is why the piano is laid out in black and white notes. Okay? The white notes actually give you a very nice set of pitches to select already. Okay? So if we start here, we have to skip those black notes. Okay, so we're going up whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Okay, so I'm just gonna write that out right now. Whole, half, okay, whole, half. Okay, this pattern of whole and half steps is how we get from the first note below unison and then to the octave. Okay, whole. Just read that. Okay, whole, half, whole, half. Okay, I'm going to turn the volume up just slightly. Okay, there we go. That's a little better. Okay, and this pattern of spacings is called the major scale. Okay, major scale. All right. Well, we should just forget what major is. A scale is basically a pattern of whole and half steps. Okay, of how you traverse an octave. How do you span the distance of an octave? Okay, and this particular scale is called the major scale. Okay, and it's actually the presence of these half steps is what makes it major. Okay, so if we assign a number to each of these notes, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we should actually put the. Oh my gosh, is this a permanent marker?
Oh, no.
I think it is a permanent marker. What the heck? Oh, they are permanent.
Oh, dear.
I try
Yeah, I'm gonna need to. Okay,
rubbing
whatever.
alcohol might do
That's
that.
crazy.
Looking at
All right.
Hand sanitizer might take it off.
Yeah, acetone or something. Okay, that's a mess now. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you here. Okay, so the numbers are here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 is 1 because that's the octave. It repeats back to 1 again. Okay, 8 equals 1. All right. This is on page 6. Okay. What was I gonna say? Okay, the half steps. Where are the two half steps located? The numbers. What are the numbers that the half steps are located between?
3 and 4 and 7.
3 and 4 and 7 and 8. Okay. So can we sing this major scale on numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and feel how close 3 and 4 are now. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Okay. So it's very close. Okay. So I'm gonna play it on the violin for you too. Okay? And because on the violin you can slide, it is actually kind of useful for this. Okay, so that space is a whole step. Okay, see how much time it takes. Okay, that's 1, 2. Okay, so here's 1, 2. But here's 3 and 4. Okay, 3 to 4 is much narrower than 2 to 3, for example. So. Okay, here, and sing with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ready? And. Good, and 7, 8 is really narrow. All remember that the major scale between 3, 4, and 7 and 8 are very narrow. It's a half step, okay? So why don't we sing that also on something called solfege, which uses these funny little syllables, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, okay? And you can read it there. You ready? Well, it's okay. I'll do it later. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, ready? Do, re, mi. And go back down. Yeah, very good. Okay, so now that we have this sense of what a major scale is, okay, and where it looks like on a piano, okay, now we're going to actually define what tonality is. This is like the take home for today, okay? In tonal music, not all notes are of equal importance. There is one note that is the most important, and tonality, that special note is called the tonic, or do, or 1, okay? So this, where we started from, okay, I don't know if you can see my finger, okay, that leftmost note, okay, in this major scale is the most important note called the tonic, and it's like our sense of where home is, okay? So in tonal music, it begins and ends at home on the tonic, okay? Wherever that tonic is, it could be a different note, okay? It always comes back to it, okay? So that is the fundamental characteristic of tonality or tonal music, okay? And because we have a home, it means we also have places which are not home. We go away from home. That's where most of the exciting stuff happens, kind of, maybe. Okay, but then we come back home at the end of the day. Okay, so every kind of tonal piece of music, most hymns are tonal. I would say pretty much all hymns are tonal. They begin at home and end at home on that tonic tonality or sonority. Okay, so we already kind of started using a notation system to kind of write down these relationships of where notes are and stuff like that. Okay, but maybe I shouldn't have shown the staff before. But this notation system was only developed around the 1600s. So it's only been in use for 600 years, not 3,000 years, okay? And I think musical notation only existed maybe around 900, from 900s onwards. Yeah, and so, it's been, but this has been kind of the standard for the past 600 years, since the Renaissance, yeah. And it's in 5 lines, okay? And these 5 lines basically represent how high pitch is, okay? So, and we use notes to these little circle things, which we saw last week in our rhythm section, or chapter, okay? To indicate both how long a note is and also what its pitch is, okay? And so, but we kind of need like an orientation point of, on this 5 lines, how can we define something, okay? And that's what we use clefs for, okay? So this symbol here is called a treble clef, okay? And if you can find a clef on your music somewhere, you can try practicing drawing that, okay? And so these 7 notes, remember we talked about 7 notes making up that's a major scale. Okay, those 7 notes each have a unique letter name to them. Okay, and we just use the first first 7 letters of the alphabet. Yeah, and you're wondering why we don't start from A. Yeah, and that's because in earlier systems of music, every single note, including like above the octave, was given different names. It went higher than G. It went H, I, J, K, L, M. Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
confusing.
Okay, and so like there was a reorganization of this like letter naming. Okay, but it ended up that we actually start on a C. It's weird. Yeah. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay? And then it's nice because like those C's, it tells you it repeats. Okay? So this treble clef tells you the where the little loopy thing goes, that is a G. Okay? And then you can basically basically you can write on a line or a space. Okay, those are all that tells you like you move one letter up or down. Okay, so so we're just gonna kind of work backwards here. So that would be N, F. Next line down
Wrong way.
is
E,
E. Next space D. Okay. Oh, we ran out of lines, so we just make another line here for that note. Okay, and this one would be
C.
yeah. Okay, so but the most important thing is that this second line here is a G on the treble clef. Okay, so this tells you like it orients you where the letters are. Okay,
So that's always the same?
that's
Where's it
always
G?
the same.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we'll later on when we get to chant, we'll find that the clefs are not always the same. They do not. The second line does not always mean G in chant clefs. Okay, but for modern notation, it's much simpler. The second line is always G. The first line is always
E.
the first space is always yeah. Okay, good. So now tell me which of these has a half step between them.
And
Right? We defined this major scale, okay, as whole, half, right? Whole, half. So E and F, this is a half space, a half step. Okay, let's continue this up, okay? So what's the next space here?
A.
A. And here?
B.
B. And finally,
C.
good. And then where is the second half step?
B and C.
E and C. Okay, there is symmetry in this. Do you see how these, it's a pattern here. This is whole, half. Whole, half. Okay, so this here is kind of symmetrical or repeating with that. Okay, whole, half, but there's a whole space in between them too. Yeah. Okay, that's why I kind of wrote this as a kind of separated whole. Okay, so these are called tetrachords. 4 notes with a very distinct pattern of spacings between them. Whole, half. Okay, so when you're reading this staff here, okay, and this is C major, the scale of C major. Okay, these notes are not. I just want to hammer that in, okay? That these notes are not all the same spacing with each other. Okay? There are 2 notes here that have a smaller half step between them, and these 2 notes have a smaller half step between them. And if we use the solfege, like the do re mi notation, what are the names of E and F here? So read back here. 3 and 4. What are they called? Mi and fa, okay? Okay, and then what about the 7 and 1? What are these 2 notes?
T and O.
T and do. Okay, so you should I think it's in bold there, okay, that mi and fa and T and do have a half step between them. This is the fundamental kind of characteristic of a major scale, okay?
You didn't give us the thing of that, right? Like,
What?
It's on page 6.
Yeah,
But
this
It
is all
looks
on page
exactly
6, I
like- It
think.
looks exactly like that, exactly?
Hmm?
It looks exactly like that, nothing else in there that I can figure it out,
Nope, it's exactly right here. This is what I drew, kind of.
but it's not exactly like that.
Well, okay, I guess it gave you the letters of the notes too. But-
I should take a picture of the bird.
Page 6.
Cause people are figuring this out, and I go, they must have some kind of,
Well,
of,
I've also recorded this,
oh.
so I hope, I think you can like go back and like take a look at this.
Page 6.
Okay, okay, so now we've talked about like the construction of the major scale, okay, and about tonality. What is tonality? Okay, we're going to do some simple melodies that are based on the major scale, okay, and so let's just sing a few of these, okay. So here, and they all start on do, which is nice, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna play with you, okay, but we're just gonna sing number 1 now. Can you all see number 1? Okay, ready and 1. On numbers, ready and
1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
good, and then 2.
1, 3, 5, 4, 1.
Ah, okay. Can we do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? There's 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Can you do 5, 4?
5, 4.
It's much smaller than that, right? It's only right and
5, 4.
good. And then can you remember where 1 is? Can you sing 1?
Do.
Good. Okay, now can you do the last 5, 4, 1? There. And
5, 4, 1.
good. Okay. Number 3 is a little harder. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again to remember where everything is. Okay, ready? And
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
remember where 4 is. Now we're gonna go back and sing number 3. Ready? 1.
4, 3, 1.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Try to be a little more accurate in your jumping around. Ready? And
1, 4, 1, 3, 1.
okay. So what we've been doing is we're just using these notes of the major scale, okay, and you know what the spacings are. Okay, there's like a half step here between 3 and 4. Okay, so that means that first line to the second space, or first line to first space is like narrower, like the notes are a little closer together. Okay, and you're just like trying to sing melodies, because music isn't always just going up and down a scale, right? It's like using different elements of it. Okay, good. Let's go to 5, which is pretty easy, but it has a little rhythmic thing, right? Let's clap the rhythm of 5 first. Ready, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's sing it. Ready, and
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1.
good. Can we do that on do re mi, the solfege? Ready, and
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, do.
good. Can we do number 7 now on do re mi as well?
Do, sol, mi.
Number 7, right? So it's 1, 5 or do so. Ready, and
Do, sol, mi, sol, do.
good. Now can we do 8? Okay. Now this is the first time we've used 7. Can we actually do 1, 7, 6, 5, 6, 7, 1? Okay, with those numbers. And
1, 7, 6, 1.
one more time. Ready? You can sing up here as well.
1, 7, 6, 5, 7, 1.
Good. Can we do it on do, ti, la, sol, la, ti, do? Let's get the first note. It's a little high, yeah?
Do, ti,
start from here, a little lower. Ready, and. Do, ti, do, mi, do. There, we got someone with an E there, okay? Good. Can we do it on numbers now? One, and just like reading the numbers. Ready, and. Good, yeah, okay? So if you are not fully able to do that yet, okay? So how I might suggest you kind of get more used to it is to always go back to singing the scale. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, okay? Because those are the notes that you will just be rearranging, basically.
Do we
Okay.
have to find a piano or something to do it on so we know what we're singing, or?
That would probably be nice.
Yeah, don't you have
I
the
feel
You
like
can go
everybody
to
else
this
had some kind of piano or something.
Pianoshow.me.
Oh.
Right here, the website is right there. Yeah.
This is
So
like everybody else is more
everyone has a piano right on their computer screen, and you can actually use a computer keyboard. Actually, I'll do it right now. I just need to figure out which. So if you just use ASDF, yeah, you can use your computer keyboard to play that.
I keep
music
thinking
keyboard.
everybody's more advanced than me. I'm just learning the letter, and then I
That's
have to know
fine.
what it
I mean,
sounds like.
everyone has to start from something,
It
right?
seems like memorizing is a lot easier.
No, it's actually no. So, music was not always notated. For centuries, it was an oral tradition, and you had to kind of live with the music for years before you could sing it. Okay? But at the advent of printing and someone figuring out how to write down a musical melody, that just blew the world open for composers to write something that other people very complicated things that other people could read and actually recreate. Yeah. So like this is why in like Western music it's so important that we know how to read music, because it gives us, it's like, if you couldn't read Shakespeare or the Bible, like it's so much harder to like kind of, there's so much more information you can get. Yeah. And same thing with music. Like if you know how to read music, it allows you to play or sing so much more than if you just like are listening to something. Okay.
So does it happen after a while? Like I'll look at that and I go, well, that's a D, and I know exactly what it's supposed to
No,
sound like?
no.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Someone has to play you what the tonic is.
Oh.
But once you know what the tonic sounds like, this note, you can figure out what all the other notes should sound like. This is the magic of tonality, because like we defined this major scale, and so remember those Greeks, they only chose 7 of the 12 notes. The 12. We don't use all of those notes in a piece of music. Okay? They chose only 7 of them. Okay? And they have a very specific relationship of spacings. Okay? And so, but this is not like, it's not like foreign to us. This is actually like what Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee, or Fur Elise, or I don't know, Happy Birthday. All these songs use these pitches, and they just reorganize them in a way, okay? And so, but you do need to know where the tonic is, okay? And that's actually why I play introductions to hymns, is to tell you where is that tonic. So if you're listening to the introduction, the last note I'll play is going to be the tonic, and often the first note too.
Oh, I can tell, I can pick
Yeah.
up the thing when I
Yeah.
start, I'm just like,
Okay.
listening to it.
But then, yeah, so then you do have to like kind of practice, and that's like the topic of the next week, of how do we navigate between different notes. Those are called intervals, yeah, okay? But we need to keep going, okay? So let's actually, we don't have too much more time. You can try singing that hymn. We can do some now. We gotta keep going. Okay, so for now, we've always been using C as the tonic, or 1 or do, okay? but we can actually use any note here as the tonic, okay? So, I'm going to choose, for now, I'm going to choose G as the new tonic, okay? So, all right, here we go. I'm going to write G here, and that's going to be our new 1, or do, okay? So using this spacing of whole and half steps, we're going to create a new major scale that starts on G, okay? So what is a whole step above G? So look at, I'm just going to put this up here. Okay, now that G is always highlighted now, okay? What is a whole step above G? That's the first, that's the 2, okay? The next note of the major scale is going to be what? A. Good, okay. Now what is a whole step again above the A?
B.
B. Okay, now that we've done 2 whole steps, we need to do mi fa for 3/4, which is a half step. So we've done B. Now what's a half step above B?
C.
Nice. Okay. Now what is the next interval? A whole step. Okay. And what is a whole step above C?
D.
Okay. And now we need to do what? Another whole. Okay, so a whole step above E on the keyboard, look, is an E. Okay. Okay, and now we need to do another whole. Okay, so what is a whole step above E?
F sharp.
How did you know that?
Look,
Because I can count.
look at the keyboard, yeah? What is a whole step above E? It's not F, right?
Oh,
That's wrong.
oh, you added
You have to skip one and go on to the black note, okay? And so this introduces a new notation, okay? It's not F, that's a whole step. It's something called F sharp, okay?
Oh.
And this sharp symbol indicates that we are raising that letter by a half step, okay? So we have to use a sharp in order to create a whole step between la and ti, okay, in this case. And finally, we need a half step here to get back to 1, okay? So what is a half step, looking at the keyboard, above F sharp?
G.
Whoops. There we go. Okay. So there we go. So using our spacings in the major scale, we just created the G major scale, okay? And notice that G major it requires the use of one accidental, what's called an accidental, okay?
Is that the sharp?
That's right, the sharp.
Okay, but I mean, the
Is that
accidental
page
is the.
Yeah, there are other kinds of accidentals, okay, and I'm going to use one again in this new key and scale, which begins on F. Okay. And so, by the way, I don't expect you probably, some of you have had training on this already and like know the letter names already of like on the treble staff. But you don't necessarily know this immediately, okay? So, but right now I'm just telling you that's an F, okay? So let's reset all these. Ugh. Okay, so here's F. And keep looking at the keyboard because that's important, okay? So we're gonna create a major scale. Okay, so let's just write out all the intervals. Whole, half, whole. whole step. Okay, so that's do, re, okay? Do, re, mi, what is a whole step above G?
A.
Okay? Yeah, all right, and then now we're at the half step, okay? Full, whole, half. Okay, so now what is a half step above A?
B flat.
A sharp.
A, okay, so it's that black thing, right? It's that black note. Okay, and yeah, so this program calls it A sharp, yep, which is completely correct. But if we want to continue with our unique letters, right, we don't want to repeat A again. And we actually do want to write it on the B here. Okay, so G, A, B. We need to introduce another symbol that lowers a note by half step. And this thing is called a flat. Yeah.
It looks like a half halt with a line through it.
It looks like a what?
Half halt with a line through it.
A what?
Half halt.
What is that?
Half halt.
Half.
H-E-A-R-T.
Heart. Oh, a half heart. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Yes. It's actually, it derives from the letter B.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I forget why. I needed, oh, it's actually because the B is flatted. That's the first note that gets flatted. Yeah. In this. Yeah, okay, so, okay, we're at B flat now. Okay, so I'm gonna do B flat. So above B flat is a whole step.